You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to Out of the Blank podcast. Now I'm going to take a shot in the dark here. It's Nick Vengoechea.
That was pretty close. It's Vengoechea.
All right.
Yeah,
So
I
Nick,
get that all the time.
tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, where are you from?
Originally from California, but I recently just moved to Virginia.
Oh, really? You're actually very close to me. I think you're like a state away. I'm in Maryland. So,
Yeah, I actually moved out here 2 years ago to be a firefighter. So I've been doing that gig.
so what do you do professionally? You're a firefighter?
Yep.
So how'd you even get started in that? Is that something you kind of always wanted to do? I mean, a lot of people see a burning building and they kind of want to stay away. They don't really try and go into it.
Yeah. Well, so it started out when I was in high school. Uh, my friend's dad got me into it, so we just started chatting about it, and then I took a class, and then next thing you know, I got my EMT. So I just went into it. I don't know. I like it. It's fun. The burning building, it's hot, but you get used to it.
Do you like the kind of the hero aspect of a firefighter? Because a lot of people don't even like really realize like the type of courage you have to go into a fire.
So for me personally, when people like the courage aspect, I don't really think about it much. Like I don't think like if I see a house on fire, I'm not gonna think, oh, time to be a hero.
See,
Uh,
I would run into the building for anything. I would go into a building for some like a good potato salad if it's the house is on fire. You gotta save the potato salad. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I think like I have friends who are firefighters. It's just not something I would be able to do. Only because I don't like the whole job of being a firefighter. I could easily run into a building just out of my own free will and save somebody's life. I wouldn't probably be able to manage it, but I have that type of, I guess, mentality. Like if someone's in danger, I want to kind of spring to help. But when you actually see a fire happen, a lot of people don't even realize like they're completely different than what they think they would do.
well, yeah, well, I think for a lot of people, so I've had times where like people have gone in and just like people who live there and they wanted to go save something. Well, a lot of people don't realize that it's a lot hotter than you think it is. Like when people think of fire, they think like a bonfire or something, but it's way hotter when you're in there and you're surrounded by it.
Oh yeah, I think the only realization I can kind of bring a little realist experience would be the fact I fell asleep next to like a small dwindling fire when I was at a campground one time, and my buddy just chalked a giant can of gas on it, and he didn't see me on the other end, and I was just like sleeping there, so I hopped up real fast. I just got extremely hot. I started running, and I look in the back of my jacket, like I was wearing one of those puffer jackets, and it was all just melted. Like, I mean, taking it off, it felt like it was stuck to me. I was like, whoa, like, but I was hot. He goes, yeah, why were you sleeping there? I was like, I don't know. It's kind of cold out. And I just decided to curl up next to the dwindling fire. I didn't expect you to chuck a can of gas on top of it. He goes, well, now you know. I'm like, oh, okay.
Did he ever explain why he was throwing the gas on it?
Well, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't think any good decisions really happen after past midnight.
That's what I was told growing up.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, this fire's dwindling, so I have a can of gas here. Let's try and get it spark. I guess he wanted the night to keep on going, and I was content in my a little spot next to the fire, but I guess he had different options. I see everyone kind of goes on those little camping trips or they light a stove and then they think that's what a fire is. That's nothing like what it is. The pure heat is like when you open up the oven after it's been on like its highest temperature and you feel that rush hit your face, you're like, whoa, and you got to back up. That's the feeling you get when you're trying to go into a house that's on fire.
Yeah, but it's a constant feeling. It's not like it cools down. you're stuck in there in that heat until you put out the fire.
How do you even manage to get the courage to keep on taking the step in through the front door? Because a lot of people would just turn around.
Well, I think the equipment helps a lot, but it's still extremely hot. I think I don't know. You see, I don't look at it in a courage way. I just say, just do it.
What types of things run through your mind when you're going into like a burning building or dealing with a fire?
Let's put this thing out. Yeah, it's sort of like tunnel vision, or like when like talking about it and then actually doing it are like two different things. Like if I'm at the door about to go in, I'm just thinking, all right, let's go get this done. But talking about it, then obviously thinking about it right now, I could think of like 100 things I could possibly think of. Like, uh, it's gonna be hot in there. Do we need to go in there? Just I could ask myself questions without it being there, but when it's there, you know what you got to do.
Yeah, it's more like acting in the moment. I have a couple friends that say they experience different things. Me, myself, I've never been into a fire, at least hopefully not going to anytime soon. But they talk about how like some of them will be like it's all about trying to get what the option or the goal is, whether it's extinguishing the fire or whether it's just getting somebody out. Sometimes you can't take the fire out, so what you have to do is you have to try and save as many people as possible, or you have to try and make sure there's no one left in the house. I've had buddies that go inside the house, get a certain amount of people out, and then next thing you know, there's someone else still in the building. And he said it's the hardest thing to literally check every part of the house that you possibly can, that's not engulfed in flames, and be able to find somebody. Mostly because if you're a little kid, I think we've all seen the movies where a little kid's hiding in the closet or a little kid's hiding somewhere that, that they're meant to be hidden. They're trying to stay away from this fire, but, it makes it very difficult as a firefighter to make sure that you have every head accounted for.
Yeah, well, that is a big issue in the fire service, especially with kids. They do like to hide under the beds, and you can't find them. That's why in schools there's, or at least my department, we do a lot of training with schools and teaching kids like if there's a fire, don't hide, go to the window and try to wave someone down.
I thought the craziest thing that you weren't supposed to do was when a window is shut, you're supposed to stay away from them because the fact that the glass could explode.
That's not really a thing.
That's
So
not a thing. So I was lied to by my teacher, the one that told me about the DARE program to stay away from drugs.
yeah, she probably lied about the drugs too.
I'm telling you, that DARE program did nothing but make kids want to experiment with drugs. Like, that's why it's not around anymore, because they would just come in with a briefcase into your small little class. They would open up this briefcase. Hey, kids, this is PCP. It gives you super strength and makes you basically invincible. And then, like, he wouldn't tell you all the bad addiction or effects to it that messes up your body for life. It's just like he gave all the lists of crazy things that the drug does to you. And any kid that is at that age is usually experiencing a lot with superhero movies, and they're like, "Oh, well, that makes me a superhero. I'm gonna try PCP when I hit 8th grade."
Well, yeah. Well, I remember it
No,
was.
it's true though. Come on.
No, I know it's you. In sixth grade, I remember being shown a video of a guy on PCP getting shot at by cops, but with rubber bullets, and he's just like running through the bullets like it's nothing. And now, as a sixth grader, I'm thinking, well, that sounds pretty cool because I'm not thinking that they're rubber bullets. I could totally imagine how someone thinks, wow, like it makes you invincible. You're showing teenagers videos of people thinking they're invincible.
What like I see. I just there's so many things that was done wrong. I mean, the fact that the DARE program just literally raised the level of addiction problems in like any community that it was involved in. But I think it's crazy to look at like a lot of kids when they're little, they try and try and figure out what they want to do with their life, much like we all try and do when we get older. And it seemed like the constant jobs were firefighter, astronaut, president, like those stupid things you would pull out a hat. but it's really crazy to see the kids that truly end up being a firefighter. It seems like they kind of had that initial inspiration from the start, whether their family was involved or whether it was just the way they just vibed or the group they surrounded themselves with. A lot of the rednecks in my school system were, I guess, joined into the firefighter club only because it was just something they saw as all the rednecks would do. Nobody else was really a firefighter. There really wasn't anybody else. You're either a firefighter or in the ROTC program. And it made it kind of difficult for some of the kids that flew under the radar, like myself, because we didn't have a vibe or a niche group of people. We just kind of walked around and kind of looked at everybody.
Well, from what I've realized, I think a lot of them do. It's a lot of people become firefighters because someone in their family was a firefighter. That I would say a majority of people who I've met have family either, or most of them have family that are firefighters or were firefighters, and then if not that, then military police.
How did you get started into it? Do you have family that was a firefighter, or is it just something you initially wanted to do?
Uh, well, in high school, I didn't want to become a firefighter for most of it. It wasn't until like the last couple months of my senior year where I changed my mind. At first, I wanted just to join the military. That was my initial plan, and then I just took a class, and then I just got into it.
I gotcha. You're not giving me a whole lot to go on, but
Well,
it's like for me, like there's a lot of things you got to take into the concept of first of all doing anything with firefighting. First of all, usually a burning building probably reaches about 600 degrees on the bottom of the floor. So I'm pretty sure anybody can experience what that might feel like only when they go to the beach and it's super hot out and they're burning their feet on the sand. Now imagine that times like six. And then the fires usually get up to like 1,500 degrees. And that's in the ceiling, dude. So, you're thinking of many factors. You got to worry about trying to find people. You got to worry about getting yourself safe. But there's so many other things going on, whether the ceiling's going to fall down on top of you, whether this is going to happen to you. My biggest fear would be the factor that I'm wearing a giant oxygen tank on my back. And the fact that if I get too close to a fire, when will that thing explode?
well, so it does get really hot. So when the hottest I've ever been was when I was doing my training academy, and the ceiling at one point, I forget the exact number, but I think it hit 1,000. I think was the ceiling. The floor was real hot. Where so our turnout gear protects us from heat for about 300 degrees, and then the rest of it's just heat you feel. And but you only feel the heat if the air is in contact with your skin. So as long as you have your gear, you can manage it more. But it gets real hot in there.
Don't you have like don't you have a deadline of time you have to hit for how long it takes you to get your gear on?
Yeah, well, we gotta throw all of our gear on in 2 minutes. If you're not putting on the pack, it's a minute and a half.
Holy crap. And that's like 80 to like 130 something pounds, right?
So with the pack and the gear, it is 75 pounds. Yeah, it's pretty tough. You basically the only way you do it is you kind of have to cheat a little. So you have to set up your gear in a certain way where you put on each thing in a certain order, and that's how you get it on.
It's like putting your pants on in the morning, one leg at a time. I think a lot of people look at firefighters now and they kind of see them as a little bit ridiculous, only in the notion that every time it seems like they use their sirens is to go through a red light and then they turn them off and then they just start driving again. It's like what's happening? But the true aspect behind them being able, like people pulling over to the side of the road, is getting the person to the hospital. Now with firefighters and EMTs, they have a deadline from when the accident occurs to get the patients to the actual hospital. They have it's around an hour's time. You can't sit there and let someone in the back of your ambulance or back of your fire truck, whatever you want to say, that who's sick. You know what I mean? And when I mean sick, I mean it just hurt in general. I had experience when I was very, very little. In my house, there was carbon monoxide poisoning. That's probably something you deal with on probably like a pretty regular schedule. A lot of people just choose like a stove's leaking. You don't really see it with a lot of the new stuff, but like older homes, they have a little bit of a carbon monoxide leak. That stuff makes you very sick.
Yeah, we get that all the time. Just you're right. It's a bunch of older homes that were or improperly built, and then we have to go over there and check it out, and then usually it's very minor and can be fixed. Occasionally, you do get the ones that are a lot tougher to fix.
What would be your treatment process if you came across someone that was experiencing like carbon monoxide poisoning?
So, as first responders, we focus mostly we do initial care and then just rush them to the hospital because at the end of the day, a doc you're gonna be in better hands with the doctor than our our hands because
Yeah, I
like
don't
right
mean like
now,
treating them fully. I mean, like, what's the steps you take into preparing them to get them to the hospital? You have to have them in at least a stable condition. You can't just whisk them out of the house. Like when I
yeah,
was little, I had the worst effect out of my whole family with carbon monoxide poisoning. Both my parents worked, and my brother went to school. I did too, but I stayed home because I was sick. My brother was sick, but he stayed home for only one day, and then he ended up going to school the rest of the days. I stayed home for a total of like 2 to 3 days, and we had a very small leak in our house. I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker to the point
as you
where I
sat
was. What'd you say?
as you sat in, you were getting sicker and sicker as you sat in it.
Yeah, well, I was just literally just marinating in this house that was leaking carbon monoxide. And I was literally like, I was awake and then I would feel really, really fatigued and really, really like I was very small. And I would just pass out head first onto the couch, like barely even make it onto the couch. And then I started like vomiting. And then I was getting really, really dizzy, really, really fast. Like someone had me on one of those tilt-a-whirls. And next thing I know, like my mom was just really just called ambulance or something. And next thing I know, a firefighter's picking me up. I mean, I was only like 3 or 4 at the time and just walking me out the door. I remember him carrying me and I'm like as I'm coming into fresh air, like my vision's going from like tunnel vision that's kind of dizzy to like kind of clear again. And then I got in the ambulance. Next thing I know, I'm just washing the doors shut and they rushed me to the hospital. I ended up being in there for like a day and a half with tubes up my nose. Like, and the shittiest part about that was not even the how sick I got. It was the fact that they played Beauty and the Beast over and over and over and over again with no other switching of the tape, just constant replay for a day and a half. I was watching that with, oh my God, I was going to like snap.
So I'm assuming you probably didn't watch the new Beauty and the Beast.
No, I tend to stay away from that movie ever since that experience. It's been about 20 years probably. I'm not feeling it anymore. I don't know. I saw that teapot do too much shit.
I feel like they just keep remaking movies.
Well, they do that a lot, and I think that's just a flashback because society we just feel like, oh, we have better technology now than what we had a year ago. Why don't we just remake it? I'm like, ah, you're gonna ruin the best part about it, which was that it died in that time period.
Yeah, oh, I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine, and it he he was growing up. He liked Aladdin when he was little, obviously, and then he saw the new one with Will Smith, and he said he just ruined the entire movie for him. Like,
What, the Aladdin?
yeah, the new Aladdin one.
Ah,
They
well,
made.
you're expecting him to be like a cartoon. Like they got to still. Apparently, a lot of people said it was really crappy because originally. Now, was he black in the movie, or did they give him blue skin?
I'm not sure. I didn't watch it.
I was about to say because apparently someone said that the initial trailer for it came out and it was actually Will Smith's just normal color, and then they ended up having to go back and post and add blue because a lot of people were giving a lot of crap that the teaser trailer wasn't very authentic. I was like, are we really going to complain? You're going to watch it anyway. It's Will Smith, man. That's like saying you're not going to watch a movie with like Will Smith. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
best. That's the best possible example. So, how did you go from doing what you're doing, being a firefighter, to starting your own podcast?
So I've since when I went to school, I got into politics, and
That's a slippery slope to go down.
Yeah, yeah. But so when I first went, I was extremely liberal when I first went. And then as I just did more research on it, I made a jump far right. And then over time, just living life, I've come to the center. And I just, so then that made me want to start a podcast where I talk to everyday people. I want to know what their experience was, people who like politics or are informed by it and choose a side. Like, I want to know what you think. I want to know your ideas. I want to know how you got to them.
But only their political views, not like what they do in their free time.
Yeah. Well,
Well, that makes sense. I mean, you got to have a focus somewhere. I mean, your
mhm.
podcast, PoliNicks. So, why? How did you, first of all, even decide to get hooked onto that in college? Because that's not something most kids are like. Oh, I want to be a doctor, or I want to go to school in medicine, or I want to go to school and just party. And you're like, no, I'm going to get stuck onto politics.
Well, it was one of my general ed requirements. So that's how I got into the class, just thinking willy nilly about it, not really paying much attention. And then, boom, she's having us write research papers, and I was hating it. And then I slowly started to like it. I was like, this is interesting stuff. And then I don't know. Now everyone argues with each other, and I find it kind of exciting.
What types of things do you focus on? Oh, wait, hold on a second. You said you find the arguments exciting. You're trying to create like a reality television type thing. You like the fighting aspect. I see what you're doing.
Now, my girlfriend would love that because she loves reality TV. But now I try to keep the conversation civil. But if someone says something outrageous, I'm going to call them out on it.
Like, what types of things do you find outrageous?
If someone says, let's take away the First Amendment, like that's something
But do
so
you
stupid.
now, okay, well, I'm going to ask you your opinion on this then. Basically, don't you try and see it from the other person's perspective as well?
I do, but at a
It might not be the logical choice, obviously, but the fact is, what they're trying to kind of understand with their process of thinking is the fact that if you take away the First Amendment, it's going to limit the audience they're trying to target. When literally, that is the dumbest idea in the world. Only on the concept of there's a reason we have rights and there's a reason we are free.
so so if someone said something I disagreed with or anything, I usually go back at them, but with like a typical follow up question, just asking like, well, but I would ask it in a way where I frame giving the argument against it, but in the form of a question. Like, what do you think about the idea of argument against what your idea is? So just to get them to think about the other side to see.
You got it. You might want to phrase that question a little bit better. That was like hard for me to follow. It was like reading a
Yeah. Well,
Monopoly chance card. I was like, what the hell do I get out of this? I have to pay $50, but at the same time, every player gives me 10.
so all right, let me rephrase that. So basically, if someone says, uh, let's ban all guns, I would be like, all right, so what do you think about people who say the Second Amendment is for government tyranny rather than just hunting with? And that's the purpose the Second Amendment was made for. What do you say to those people who argue that, and then have them respond to?
Well, a lot of what politics doesn't do is the fact that there's two really good things about politics, and you should definitely take a little bit of kind of looking towards what you're talking about. You want to do research for sure. You want to make sure you're also very good at speaking. It seems like the people that get voted for president, people that get voted for anything really to run something, are very good at being able to get their point across. Obama per se. You know, you hear Obama's voice. You know, I like to talk like this, but like he might have that pause break, but he's very very good at vibing with an audience. This is what makes Trump so very popular. The whole fact that he is very outlandish in the way that he acts. I don't think that's his true purpose. I don't think he's really trying to be just everyone hate him. I think he's more doing it because that's what's going to get him views. That's what's going to get people to talk about him. Trump's all about his brand. Like he's all about getting his name out there. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, there's so many different things that go into the mind of a president. You literally see them age 10, 20 years as they're basically in this 4-year situation. They
Yeah,
age.
have you seen the before and after pictures of Obama?
Oh, it's freaking crazy. His hair's all gray. He looks completely different. He literally looks beaten and broken. And then now you see him now, he's just golfing.
Yeah, he's starting to grow black hairs again.
So when you hear someone say that they think that the First Amendment should be taken away, what immediately do you fight with that?
Well, for if I've never heard that, I was just using that as an example. But if
Well,
someone,
I've heard of it. It's actually happened in my area. They took away you cannot use language on this public spot in our town. It's known as the boardwalk. It's right next to the beach. You're not allowed to use any type of language. You'll get a ticket. And this is where I said this is a problem. I understand you're trying to make it more of a family aspect, like don't no cursing on the beach or no cursing on the boardwalk because there's families and children all around. Well, let me tell you, I can guarantee you that family that's fighting that side, that like my kid should not have to hear cursing. You probably curse at home and your kid hears it. Like there's no kid, at least above the age of like 6 or 5, that hasn't heard a nice fuck. Like, you know what I mean? There's no way. I think when you're doing something like that, it is in good terms. Yeah, you should kind of beware of what you're saying. You don't want to be dropping like a bunch of curse words at grandma's dinner table. But at the same time, like they're going to hear it in their everyday life. And you trying to stop it from being in an area is just going to promote it even more.
I agree and disagree. So, like, I never heard that till now. So, are you saying no, like,
There's
foul
no
language or
profanity on the boardwalk at all. They have signs that say no profanity. This is a whatever profanity prohibited, all that, whatever the hell that shit is. And I'm like, I've lived here 20 something years. And you're telling me now I can't curse on the boardwalk because some guy from a whole another part of the country comes over here and just decides that that should be a thing. Like people cuss in their everyday lives. I don't know a single person who doesn't cuss in their everyday lives. It either slips out at one point. Um, I think
well,
that's just a ridiculous way. It's like suppressing something that shouldn't be suppressed. Because if you a lot like people always chalk up to the example that if you made drugs, all the hardcore drugs legal, would people stop doing them? No, they wouldn't stop doing them. They'd actually probably do it. You see a spark of an increase, but it would eventually die off a little bit, and then the people that were still doing them would still do them. It's the whole factor of you're telling people they can't do something. It's all about an authoritative view.
well, yeah. So coming from it at the political view, it's unconstitutional to begin with to prohibit speech in a public area. But the argument that you said about the drugs, that's an argument I've heard a lot, and I actually tend to agree with it. I think there's way more benefits than just people slowly not using it anymore. I think just the war on drugs, we've spent billions of dollars on the war on drugs just to have gangs in the United States selling these drugs, and they're violent as well. And if if they were all legal, they wouldn't have. They're only here because there's a, a need for it. There's people who want it,
Well,
and if
it's the whole idea you're oppressing a group of people. Once oppression starts to rise, anywhere throughout history, it's been recorded that when oppression rises, there's usually some type of force or something that sparks in the people to cause them to outcry and outbreak. You know, you hear riots and stuff. People feel like they're being told and forced to do something that they don't feel, might be comfortable. A lot of the riots that broke out back in like the 90s and all those times were because people were dealing with a severe amount of stress, and they were being felt like what their life was structured to the point where they were breaking open shop windows and stealing things out of the just off the store. And that's not even the person that's making the laws. They're just stealing from a random business owner in the area. They don't act rational, because it's hard to be rational when you feel like your whole life and everything, this whole constitute of freedom, all these things are very, very limited when you truly look at it.
Yeah, well, I think we're starting to see more of that like now as well. I think a lot of people are realizing that most of their lives has have been played out for them. They didn't really have much of a say in it.
Yeah, well, a lot of people feel like they need to structure themselves off a certain celebrity and feel like that's what their life's supposed to end up like. I have a problem with authority. So when someone's trying to tell me to do something, I'm going to be the person that's not going to do it. I can do it on my own. I do think it's very important to have some laws, such as speed limits, like those types of things are there for a reason. But I think the whole factor of, if you really think about laws, they were created by people. People are not perfect. Nothing is truly right. There are some laws where you're like, why the hell is that even a thing? Like, you're telling me I can't do what? Like, once people start questioning the government is when you start to see the government kind of freak out a little bit. I'm not 100% for the government. I'm not 100% against the government. It's created this country that I kind of live in, and I'm not hating it and I'm not loving it, but I definitely think there's things to fix. But I think that doesn't go on to the whole lines of the government. I think that goes into the whole lines of who we are as people. A lot of people that come over from another country, they start off with the mindset of land of opportunity, land of freedom, and they love it for the first month they're here, and then eventually you start to see it break them. I see it every single day working in a hotel. I see Romanian kids, Bulgarian kids, Serbian kids, Ukraine kids. I see a whole variety of people from Haiti, all these things that come down. And they always say, "I love it, I love it," and I was like, "All right, I'll see you at the end of summer." It's around that time, and then next thing you know, they're just like, "I want to go back home. I don't like it here. I don't. This is not. This was not fun." And I'm like, because you got dived into the workforce, and you realize when it means land of opportunity, it's about the land of having two jobs, and that can barely get you through the day.
Well, I think it's that, and then also I think at a certain point, some people are just scared of the, I guess, freedom. Like, so, yeah, some people have to work two jobs, but you also have the freedom to go swimming whenever you want, or live by the beach, or I think that's why nowadays you're seeing a lot more and more people become for bigger government, is because they want someone to tell them what they can and cannot do. I think a lot of people are having trouble with the responsibility of making your own choices.
I kind of got to fight the opposite on that one, only on the concept of, I know a lot of people that are anarchists only on the concept they think the government's crooked as hell just because it lies a lot. I'm like, honestly, if you look at anything in the political system, the government at all, it's all funded by a much bigger operation. I think JFK hinted at it best in his speech, the one where he says, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Well, if you listen to the full thing, it actually says in it, he's like, I don't think it's not possible that there isn't a shadow society or government. And if there is one, I will expose it. And then not even 5 months later, he got assassinated. Come on. People like to chalk up that conspiracy theory. That's one I find a little bit that seems to be a little truth, because if you look at a lot of shady stuff the government has done through the years, not just America's government, any type of government, because they feel like they're more superior. And I say, it's really crazy how like the only thing that scares the government is the people, because the people truly hold the power, but we don't have the mindset that we do hold the power. It's the government regulates everything, because you see the man in the suit, you see all these different types of things, and you get immediately turned off by it, which makes it very, very difficult for you to kind of follow every single notion, whether it's a government experiment, whether it's some other type of thing that happened in the past. It's very, very difficult. But I also see the amount of stress that a government or a type of system or country, when they're running something, it's very hard to keep everybody's opinions and wants and demands all kind of looked at in an aspect. It's very hard to get millions of people to agree. We see that in a country, and then looking at a state, it's very hard to get anybody in a state to really agree. There has to be a bunch of people coming together. This is what we should do. This is what we shouldn't do. This is, the list goes on, and that's just because everybody's different, unique in their own individual way, but also their values, their morals, where they came from, and shaped them into the way they've kind of turned out today.
Well, so I think most governments do not do things right, and I'm not saying the U.S. government is perfect, but I think when it was first founded, obviously there was a lot less people, and in the early years of America, probably the first 150, and then even after that, until like the 1940s, that is when I think it went bad, when bigger government started taking over. Uh, there's a reason why the polarization in the parties didn't start until like the 50s, the 60s, 70s, is because people didn't really care about government much because government wasn't in their lives that much.
And
So,
also the fact that back in that age period was a time of heavily influenced drugs,
what do you mean?
psychedelics, the 50s, 60s. Those were kind of times the government was kind of rolling through, kind of creating a little bit of steam, doing a little bit of stuff, but kind of still relatively, I guess, eh, getting intimate with the people's lives. But people were more experiencing drugs. Have you ever seen the opening scenes of Pineapple Express?
I haven't seen it in years.
Well, the opening scene, the dude's smoking subject or whatever subject X or whatever it is, and he's smoking it, and then he starts doing all these weird things, and the government's like, okay, we can kind of sell this. It's supposed to be pot, and he's like, all right, well, we can kind of sell this. And the next thing you know, he starts questioning the government. Like, why are we underground right now? Like, why aren't we out there exposing this shit to the world? And the dude just immediately screams, illegal. And then that's the whole thing I think is true. When people start questioning the government needs to put restrictions on it in their mind's aspect. Now, I love the government when it comes to the fact that they let us, the life we have, it's manageable for us. It's not the best, it's not the worst, but it could be a hell of a lot worse if we didn't have a government. You know what I mean? A lot of people fight the idea of communism or these types of things, places that seem like they're doing it better. But I'm like, you could be living in South Korea where, you say anything about your guy and he kills you. Vladimir Putin does it in a way that's pretty stylish. He goes like shirtless on a horse and just, I don't like that guy. Fucking he did that on camera. He was like went like this, like he's chopping something, like his neck or something, and meant like kill the guy. The dude fucking died. Like he gets rid of people. Like that's his thing. Like nobody messes with Vladimir Putin because he has the one true aspect. He's a real motherfucker. He's like, yo, if I don't like you, I'm gonna tell you I don't fucking like you. Like he's gonna make sure you go away. A lot of times with the government, like people always talk about like, oh, isn't that weird how, he had this giant speech he gave and the next thing you know, he died in a random car accident. I'm like, when you
Yeah.
start doing shit like that, like crashing Teslas and stuff, and it seems like the government's kind of just killing you off silently. I'm like, I bet guarantee if the government just was like, yo, like you can't say that, we're gonna get you killed. And then if they were like that, people would be like, oh, well, thank you for not hiding that from me. I think it's the whole idea. Like we have a Freedom of Information Act, okay? And all that information does not get released until like 20 years after it's already over with. And basically all the people that were involved with it are like no longer living. In 2017, they released the final 500 documents of JFK and still left 50 of them, 50 non-readable to the open source public. I'm like, okay, what's on those 50 documents that we can't read? And why is every time I try and look up some information or government project that we did, and it's all out there as evidence now, why is everything covered in black lines?
Yeah, well, well, speaking of offing people, so you know who Jeffrey Epstein is?
Yeah, I think we all know about the Epstein suicide, whatever you want to say it is.
So, what is your true opinion of it? The
Honest,
guard fell asleep, camera wasn't working.
Honestly, I don't know. I've seen facts from both sides, and I haven't really paid attention to the case really to care anymore because I found the whole aspect of if you're going to get consumed into politics, you got to be 100% for it. And you also have to have a lot of free time on your hands. I, for one, it's different because I hear my friends kind of talk about it like it's a conspiracy, man. But I'm like, yeah, but you also kind of are a bit of against the government anyway, so you're more likely going to believe that. And then I have people that work, police work in this type of thing. They're like, I don't know. I don't think our government would do that. And I'm like, it's hard to see who's got the blind view here. So I try and take it in from both aspects. I have a buddy that runs a political podcast. I'll actually shoot him over to you if you want to talk to him. I don't think you probably vibe with him very well, only on the concept of he probably wouldn't let you get a say into anything. Uh, but he has good points.
Oh, well, what kind of politics does he lean towards?
What podcast does he kind of have?
Yeah, well, or like what side does he usually lean towards?
He leans to the more the government is a giant fuck up, basically. His name's Mr. Josh. He owns a political podcast. But like I do episodes with him and stuff. Like, he just talks about a bunch of random crap that's going on that people are not kind of open to. I always chalk it up to like he wants to talk about Dave Chappelle and how Dave Chappelle has this comedy sketch out now that's literally it's the legit truth. I probably
Oh, it's
mentioned
hilarious. I love it. It's
it was amazing. It was true comedy, but people saw that and were giving him a lot of shit because he was making fun of people. I'm like, we've become too sensitized. We have become way too babied. We want everything to be fed into our mouths. We don't want to work for anything anymore. We just want things to be handed out to us. That's where I see it as a problem. Now, do I think we can fix that? Yes. Do I know what it takes? No. I think a lot of people like we might need something. A lot of people are like, the way society is going, we might need another world war. That might be what it takes. Only on the concept of when you have a opposing force or some type of terroristic attack, it's going to unite the people to literally get off their ass and get moving. When we were at war, back in the day, we had things like Rosie the Riveter that got all these women to join together to be able to work in factories and literally produce what was known as a man's job, even though that's kind of irrational nowadays. But they did all these things. They literally stepped up to the plate. I believe people step up to the plate when they're forced to the edge.
well, I feel like another reason why people weren't as sensitive back then, or like when it comes to guys, for example, is you're throwing them in a war at age 18. They're not, I guess, being babied until they're 28. They were actually fighting the Nazis, you know? So like,
Well, yeah, they had to grow up too. Like my grandfather talked about as soon as he left school, once he turned 18, he was up into the military, immediately got drafted in. The next thing you know, he had to leave when he was around 23 and raise his brother and sister and his mom, basically to help take care of her because his father had passed away. He did not have an option to pursue anything. That's why I tell people when you're looking at the land of opportunity and all these things that America bolsters, it's the fact that you do have an option to go seek what you want to do, but you have to set yourself up that way. A lot of the times, people that are experiencing, obviously our economy is not the best, but it's not the worst. There's definitely worse off places, and I hate doing comparisons, but we got a good roll of the dice of where America was founded out. Anything I say on politics cannot be truly seen as information. It's just my understanding of what I know very little bit about. I usually do not talk politics, only on the concept of I also do like I look at topics like, like conspiracy theories, government experiments, but I think you can find that everywhere. I think it's the whole idea that you have a force or a type of thing that's known as law. You have these types of words, like even saying the word law, it does not feel right when it comes out of my tongue.
so I think when we're talking like people's situations. And so I think people who grow up in America see what other people, like most of the time more successful or happier people, and see their lives, and then they get envious. So then that's why they ask the government, please step in, make our lives better. And I
Yeah.
think that's why we've seen a growth in government. I think that's why we see more and more people want more government interaction in your lives.
Yeah,
When
I think
I personally don't agree with that. I think you are dealt a certain hand, and you make the best out of it.
Yeah, I think the whole concept of people want to be free, but as soon as being free requires a lot of things, we want someone to help us out along the way. I can't talk shit on a lot of the government only because of the concept of they do let me live the life I'm kind of living. There's reasons, there's rules in place. A society without rules would truly crumble. It would be if there was a place that was literally nothing but anarchy, it would not be run right because too many people have different goals and different aspects, different values that turn them out to be who they are today. I think you got to look at the idea of the president. Do you think there should be one guy that runs a whole governing group of people?
No, but I
Yeah.
think that's why it's good we have Congress.
Yeah.
But
But really, when you look at things, everyone's got their own funded view. I think it's the same concept when Robin Williams talks about that political candidates and these types of people in Congress, senators, all these people that you hear are getting funded by companies. They should be like NASCAR drivers. They should have the sponsor of whoever is funding them for their idea on their shirt of their sleeve. Like, oh, you voted the big tobacco policy. Oh, because you're funded by, okay, yep, you're funded by the tobacco industry. That makes sense. You would see why they would vote that way. I think it's the whole concept of you create this idea, the government, these types of things, and you're like, this is this force, this all-knowing, ever-seeing, strict guidelines of what's supposed to be right and always is right, and it's never going to hurt you. Yeah, but who works in the government? Oh, people. Oh, people fuck up all the time. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense why the government's a little bit crooked. Oh yeah, because people are crooked. I think it's the whole basis. We started on a really, really crappy foundation. Christopher Columbus, this whole country was founded on basically nothing but lies. You only hear what you're being told in the history books. You hear Columbus discovered America. He yeah, did all this. He did it all by accident. And when he came over here, he was basically trying to trade gold and all these things that he found um, to these Native Americans, and these Native Americans didn't have gold. It was actually projected that they actually estimate that they got their gold from Japan or some other type of thing where they traded another material to get that because there was no gold here. There wasn't really any. And so Christopher Columbus saw that. And what he did was he lied. He sent a message back saying, there's gold here, send more ships over, only so he could have a safe passage home. Because the whole concept of they were going to leave his ass there if he did not find anything. Back in the day, when you were discovering, they would send you on missions knowing that you're not going to return if you don't find anything. You would go out on this trip, realize, they're not going to send supplies to me. They're not going to waste all that time if I haven't found anything. So I'm going to make up something. He was grabbing Native Americans, bashing their heads on rocks, bashing babies' heads on rocks. You hear that type of stuff that wasn't told in a history book. You start to go, man, I don't know if I trust everything the government's saying to me.
well, yeah, well, that actually reminded me of a topic I was talking about with my friend. So you know how they tell how old the Earth is and all that? They use carbon dating.
Yeah.
So supposedly he did all the research where carbon dating is extremely inaccurate. And
Well,
the
that's
only
true. It's an estimate.
well, exactly. So, but the only reason why people still use it or scientists still use it as a form of measurement is because too many of people's families and jobs depend on it being a legitimate thing.
That's the same reason I chalk up to the example, like when you hear someone's government funding or some type of archaeologist find some random bone after 30 years of not finding shit. And he's like,
Hmm.
I found it. This is the bone we were looking for. It's like, we just told you 2 days ago we were going to cut all your government funding and basically you were going to be broke and this project wasn't going to continue. And then 2 days later, you found a bone? Yes. Well, what is it? It's an and he's just rambling off some large ass name, and the next thing you know, they got all these people out there looking for this one thing that's basically not there. It's like, motherfucker, that was a chicken bone you got from Royal Farms when you were eating that 6 piece. You just decided like this is the extreme measure you had to take to make sure you still got funding. Do I think anything is it's really hard to predict when anything came from. They get it wrong all the time. There's the statue or the Lady of Villanova. It's like this little statue they thought was it had like big feminine portions to it. Like it was supposed to look like they thought it was some type of temple or some type of like idol little hand thing that would help women get fertility, these types of things. When really you look at it and they're saying that it was just a doll that a child had. Like that's what they're saying. It was like an action figure like we have today. That was just something for back then. It wasn't something as a blessing to help someone get a consume or consummate a baby. That was we got that all wrong and we predated it wrong. It actually came from somewhere else. I'm like, everyone's just making a giant guess. And we look at that guy as wearing a suit, wearing some type of archaeologist type look, whether it's the flannel shirt with the weird ass hat and the circular glasses. And you're like, that guy's smart. I'm gonna listen to that guy.
Yeah, well, we do the same thing with politicians too. Just because they're wearing a suit and they point using a fist with their thumb over their pointer finger. That all
That
right?
that guy's
Well,
got my respect.
yeah,
I got the I vote for Lyndon B. Johnson button. You know, I got that button only because he was seen as a awesome individual. That's why it's really crazy when you look at all these people that are like, "Oh, the president's job is so hard. There was only very few good presidents out there." Let's say Reagan, because he was literally the face of America, just like JFK was. They were these revolutionary people, but they died really like into their office terms or they were taken out of office. You know what I mean? They just weren't president anymore. And it was so quick, their presidency. I always chalk up to if they had more time, we wouldn't look at them in this heavenly aspect. You know, JFK had things he did wrong. Reagan had things he did wrong. The problem is when you look at the president, the idea of being a president of any governing group of people, there's always going to be a complaint about him because he can't please or try and get everybody's agreements in anything. You can't. There's always going to be one guy in the back that's like, I don't know. I don't know about that one, sir. I don't think he did it. You know, it's like going to jury duty and everyone's just trying to agree on something, but everyone's got a different view or different understanding. And then there's that one guy that holds everybody up that makes it last like a 2 extra days when people are literally just trying to go home.
yeah. Well, I think JFK was one of the like we look at him like some great guy, but then you hear the stuff like he he supposedly cheated on his wife and stuff. Like if he would have lived out the days and finished his term and then post presidency, and then we would have learned the fact, I think our view would be very different than what it is now.
Well, it's like that concept in Batman. I think Batman said it best was you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And I'm like, that's so true because usually when we look at all these people, famous people that did something so right, they died relatively quick or they were taken out of the position relatively quick. You know, it seems like the longer they stay into something, the more they're involved, the more you start to question them and more start to do these types of things. I think that's what makes like people that have like a one hit wonder, you know, it makes that song so powerful because at that time it was something, it was like a quick trend. I just look at the idea of being a president. It's very hard to do. It's a ever mounting pressure onto that person. And it's really weird because we like to think of, oh, the president should dress like with a suit, should look very government. And then we vote someone like Trump with orange skin and orange hair. And you're like, what happened? I think people are looking for that celebrity. We're looking for that attention seeker, the one that's going to go out there and say stuff that's going to make us go, "Oh, he just said that."
Well, yeah. Well, I think that's the only reason why Trump still uses Twitter, because people love the fact that he just says whatever he's thinking on Twitter. Which I guess that's kind of a good thing too, if you think about it. Like, don't we want someone who's just gonna say like what they're thinking, not just hide it from us until
Yeah,
after the fact?
you want someone who's real.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell what's real and what's just a cover act because I think he's just kind of playing his role as being a, I guess, business person. He's getting people to talk about his name, which affects his brand. He doesn't see good publicity or bad publicity. He just sees people mentioning the word Trump. He doesn't hear what comes after it. And if he does, it's him yelling or tweeting something else out just to get attention. It's a giant publicity stunt, dude. He's a celebrity. It's like voting for The Rock as president. Like you're literally voting someone that got famous off of trying to be famous, like doing movies and these types of things. You literally voted a guy who was on The Bachelor. Like, come on,
But
what's
yeah,
happening?
he had his own reality TV show, The Apprentice, and
That's what it was. That
of
was
course
The Apprentice. That's what it was.
of course he's gonna know exactly what to do because people love reality TV. I personally don't understand it. I can't stand reality TV, but
I only bring up the theory that people love reality television because when you don't have violence or you don't have arguments or confrontation in your everyday life, you look for it somewhere else, and that's what makes reality television so damn alluring to people. The whole factor of Jersey Shore, okay, that was like anybody that was not experiencing like an argument throughout their day. Like I had a good day today, and then they go and immediately start watching Jersey Shore. Like, why would you ruin it with that? And it's like no, because they didn't have confrontation in their everyday life. And constantly, humans need connection and we also need confrontation.
so I was actually gonna ask you that. So you think humans need confrontation? You think?
I think if it's not, I'm not saying everybody needs to get to a fist fight 24/7. I think it's the whole idea like you need to have that opposing view. You need to have something that goes, well, why do you think that? And it makes you have to question things. 'Cause I think if everybody was in agreement 100% of the time, nothing would ever really truly get solved. And it's you're meant to question. People are different mindsets, different thinking through the experiences they've had. That's why when I see someone like if me and you said bagels were awesome or Fruit Loops were awesome, then there's no conversation after that. There's no, but why are Fruit Loops awesome? Yeah, they may be good, but they have a high sugar content, and that's probably not good to eat if you're trying. You have to have that opinion, that opposing force. But there's a extent to where that goes. When someone cracks a joke that's meant to be as joke, Dave Chappelle, for example, uh, or another comedian, like a bunch of comedians say stuff but now to the point where they're afraid to kind of say something only on the concept of someone's going to stand up and get them their whole career ruined just by complaining about something. It's like you have to understand when it is necessary to intervene.
Well, yeah. Well, I feel like lately you see, or like I'm trying to think of an example. Like coworker, someone says like, well, I used the bagel example. I like bagels, and there's always somebody who says I hate bagels, and then everyone's looking at them like, why do you hate bagels? So, and you could use that universally with any subject. I think a lot more people are trying to be that person who stands out for hating something or hating on it, where people are asking them, why do you hate it, or all eyes are on them. And I think that's sort of what I guess somewhat like what Trump did, like how he just says something just for the reaction.
Yeah, well, he wants to get his name talked about too. I think it's everyone has an inner thing inside of them that wants a little bit of rebellious, whether it's being a devil's advocate in a conversation or something. It brings into the whole mindset of what it means to be like, I guess, a dick and what it means to be open minded. I try and be an open minded as possible just when it comes to whatever someone is thinking, whether someone is experiencing, whether it's a theory, whether it's a concept, whether it's something they're interested in. I try and look at it from their angle as well, because I find that you can't make a ratified justification on anything if you don't truly have the, I guess, understanding from where the person is coming from. You have to kind of place yourself in their shoes first and then make your own decision after you feel a certain way.
Yeah, well, that I try to do that. I think that's why I've politically speaking, I've flipped from far left to far right, and then now I'm in the middle, listening to both sides, seeing whoever has the best ideas. And I think that's important. I think a lot of people just are picking teams now. People
I'm
just choose a team.
yeah, well, it's like football, you know. I want to be on the right. I want to be on the left. You know, you see them both swing different ways though. It seems like the right nowadays is doing stuff the left used to do, and the left is now being more a little bit seen as right. I think it's really, really weird when you start labeling yourself. I'm a conservative. Like people don't even like you say, "Hey, how's it going?" They're like, "It's nice to meet you. My name's," and they say their name and they go, I'm a Democrat." And you're like, Why are we? Why are we? What? Like, you know, tell me your age before you tell me you're a Democrat or a liberal. Like I've had people come up to me in
Mhm.
conversations and go, "Hey, I'm Jeff. I'm a liberal." And I'm like, Did you just introduce yourself with what party you're supporting? Like, I don't care. I don't think the concept of politics, at least in my conversations, don't doesn't really ever get brought up. I think people
Yeah,
are too
God damn it, Jeff. So
what do you what? Yeah, goddamn Jeff. What's wrong with Jeff? Just because he's a liberal?
no, why did he have to bring it up? It's like a vegan. Have you seen that Joe
Yeah.
Rogan's? No.
Oh my God. They always mention it. My buddy's vegan. I can't go anywhere with him. I mean, I love him to death, but good God, when it takes 40 extra minutes to order something off the menu, I get a little pissed off.
Yeah, and that's the kind of comedy I like too. Just it's honest. Like I've I've probably had like 100 interactions with vegans. I would say solid 90% mention that they're vegan.
I think it's the whole concept of, like I was saying, that people want to be the devil's advocate. People just want to be difficult sometimes. I only think it's the concept of they just want that connection and they feel like the connection that they want is confrontation. I don't think they look at it as just understanding. I think it's the whole idea like they want that little bit of rebelliousness where they're seen as like something that's going to be like, well, then why do you do that? And it's like, well, your meets murder, meets murder. And it's like maybe they truly believe that. But I also think it's the idea like you can just say or think meets murder, but not have to try and change somebody's view on it. I think they just need confrontation nowadays because you're not usually getting it in the right forms. You're not getting a sense of connection with people, like a type of conversation or something that might not both parties agree on. It's I can't see what the fix would be for people to try and get that out of our system.
Yeah, I can't. The only thing I can think of is teaching people, or you see, I don't want to blame the parents, but they're being raised in a way where they think that's okay, or they think that's like what they need to do, or maybe people just need shittier childhoods. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't see that the shittier childhood thing happening much anymore. It seems like, yeah, you're seeing a lot more divorced parents. You're seeing a lot more things happen, but the kid also gets very, very spoiled too. You don't see it anymore. You know, my cousin ordered Uber Eats to his house. I remember when I was limited to a damn Domino's delivery menu, you know? I'm like, what's happening here? You're given too many options. I think people are given way too many options to the point where they feel like they can just do whatever they want whenever they want to do it.
Yeah, but I don't know. I like all the options, but then there's also if you have all these options, you got to make the right choice. And I feel like that's a problem. People aren't making the right choice.
Would you say the overall ending, I guess, would be like you were saying for bigger government? I think that might be true on the concept of maybe a unified government, where instead of all these different parties, we just had a bunch of people coming together with different votes and different opinions, but everything kind of be looked at as an overall vote, not just like, hey, this is what this party passed. This is what, they're right. So they they want hardcore, immigration, all these types of things. Like, not they don't want immigration here. I'm like, "Wh- what are we
Well, that's
doing?
what George Washington wanted. He said we shouldn't have political parties, and
Well, why are we structuring ourselves off of people that have been dead for 300 something years?
well, he fought for no political parties. He said we should do no parties. People just run and vote however you want to vote. And then the second he stopped being president, they made parties.
I think the whole idea that you start, Abraham Lincoln said that a house divided cannot stand. That's true. And sadly, our house is very divided, and the whole factor of nobody wants to agree on anything because everybody's got some stupid opinion. Well, that stupid opinion does matter, but you're not going to take the time to look at it because that person does not agree with what you agree with. I think the whole idea when the World National Trade Organization, whatever, all these League of Nations, these people that come together to be able to talk, they're all bickering and yelling at each other. Yeah, they're not the president of their country, but they're the ambassador or whatever for their country. Get them all in one spot, make it like singlesmeet.com where you have a quick amount of time with someone, but let's make it an hour. Okay. So that means America talks to China for an hour, then China talks to Australia for an hour. And we do that until every single country is talked to one another. Then you have a better understanding of everybody's thoughts on something, and you're able to also fight the other side's persons because you're going to find people you click with and you're going to find people you don't click with. Okay. So wait, you're saying China said there should be a child limit? There should be a child limit. You think that we should just immediately get rid of the kids? I don't know why I went to Obama. He's our president anymore, but this is the default voice I'm using. It's like, but we use that. Let's say that's this little test of mine saying League of Nations. We get a bunch of people talking to every other person that's involved for 1 hour, just 1 hour time. Okay. You sit down in front of a table, America's staring right at you. Like, all right, what do you think? He gives you his whole list of stuff. You give him your whole list of stuff. Next person, let's say we get Beijing, whoever in front of us now. We start talking to them. Yeah, but I think America is wait, but why do you think that? See, I've talked to America already, and they say it's actually from this understanding. You get more people that are understanding and hearing different people's things, getting swayed different ways. You'll start to have a better realization of what everybody's intake from everybody is. And that might actually end the conflict. Because at the ending, we're like, has everybody talked to everybody? Everyone's like, yeah, it's like, how do you feel? I don't know. I don't know what to say. All right, then let's start throwing up some world problems right now that we're all experiencing and see the radical kind of justification on what we should be doing. And next thing you know, people are going to be more in agreement because they have a better understanding of what's going on in places they're not involved in.
Well, that and I also think if you have everyone together and they explain what's wrong for them, then like America, China explains what's wrong for them, and then maybe instead of disagreeing on one issue the whole time and then not getting anything done, you can find at least something to agree on and work on that issue.
It's all coming with one answer to everything. And that's very hard to do in a place that everyone is very, very different. I literally feel after this podcast, I need to take a shower because we got so political all into the government. I feel stained.
Come on, it's fun, isn't it?
Not really on the concept of I don't have the balls to run a country and I don't really want to. So I don't like talking about what other people are doing with it. It's just the fact I like hearing everybody's kind of opinion and thoughts on something, but when you start trying to structure your views off someone else's, you have to take into multiple counts. I don't know a side like your side agreeing that there should be these types of things going on in our government, what they should be doing. People should be more kind of, I guess, censored in a way. But at the same time, I have to look at the other side as well, where there's people that didn't have a good standing with the government, don't like the government, want to fight the government at every single step of the way. And it really doesn't come together unless you have both those sides in the thing. And me, I'm more of a middle lance person. I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. I just know that tomorrow I go to work and then I get off at this time and then I have this coming up next. And I'm more involved in my own life than what the other types of people are doing. Because if you try regulating everybody else and not even fixing yourself, you truly lose the, I guess, wants and ambitions that you have as a person.
Yeah, well, you can't really help others until you help yourself. You gotta. I think, like for me, the whole politics stuff and getting all into it and all that is I just enjoy the knowledge, and I enjoy talking about the knowledge. But I don't think I'm going to be running for Congress or doing any actual political activism because I don't know. Like you said, it's a filthy game. It's to actually be in the game is kind of gross.
It's like Monopoly. It's meant to be a family game, but you're really just trying to make the other person fucking broke. That's the concept of winning Monopoly. So where do you see your end path going? I mean, are you going to stick being a firefighter, or are you going to dive off into another thing with your life?
I think I'm thinking I'm just going to do firefighter and just stick it with that. I think I'm going to continue doing the podcast, and if I make some money off that, that's fantastic. But right now, my primary focus is firefighting, and podcasting is just a hobby.
That's I think that's pretty awesome of you, being able to have the idea of going in and helping people that are experiencing severe loss, and whether it's someone getting stuck like me back into a fire because they have to go save a potato salad, or just someone that truly needs help. I think it's awesome that you're out there doing that.
Thank you, thank you.
And I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was awesome talking to you. Even though we got into stuff I know nothing about, I really appreciate the conversation. It was definitely cool to be able to at least understand your thoughts on it, and especially you doing a podcast involved with it. It's pretty cool to know that there's information for anybody out there, whether they're seeking something, if it's politics, if it's sports, if it's something. Podcasting has really helped out and making people's voices heard and getting a bunch of different voices to truly make a justification on something.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on the show, man.